Good afternoon or morning, y'all, depending on what time it is for you guys. Today I'm going to show you how I made my Alucard outfit. So, without further ado, let's get started. I first started with the sword, which the maker of the sword I found on Thingiverse. His name is in the description below. And I did have some problems with the hilt to where there were some holes in it, so that was problem number one. And problem number two was more of my fault. I made it a little too big. So I have a simple solution for this. And there we go, just the right length. So these prints, each piece has a little hole in it, a little hexagonal hole in it where these pegs go in. So I went ahead and sanded down the pegs, and then I'll just hot glue those pegs in and hot glue the whole thing together. Now with all the pieces together and mostly straight, you can still see there's some seams on there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a soldering iron and weld all the seams together to make it much stronger and less likely to break. might have made it a little bit too big. Now that it's all welded together, I'm going to take my Dremel tool here and smooth out some of these rougher parts and also smooth out the welds. Now I'm almost done with the Dremel. Now I'll just take some sandpaper and I'll slowly go up in grip size to make this nice and smooth. Once I got it mostly sanded, I'm just going to use some of this wood putty and basically put it all over the blade. Afterwards, I'll do another round of sanding to make the blade nice and smooth and try to make it look like one homogeneous piece. I also put globs of the stuff in the holes to try to fill them in, and once we get it sanded, it'll look nice and round. Now what's cool about this putty is that it starts off as pink, but once it dries to a whitish color. Now with the putty all nice and dry, see how it turned that white color? It's now to do another round of sanding to once again make it look smooth. And then once the regular sanding is done, I'll do a type of wet sanding with a cloth and some water. It's starting to look like a thing. It's starting to look more like a one piece rather than multiple pieces welded together. Now the last thing is just to wet sand it, which for that I just use a rag and some water. So what this kind of does is that the putty, it kind of dissolves it just a little bit, just enough to make it nice and smooth like one piece of putty. The next step is to coat it in some of this 2-in-1 filler sandable primer, and as you can see in the back there, I also went ahead and printed out his shield. Now this shield I got from DaVinciStudioCosplay. Unfortunately, I lost the link to where I got the shield from. I apologize for that, but basically the same thing I did with the sword I did here, where I welded it, where I printed it out in different pieces and then welded all together, and then used putty to fill in the welds. You probably might recognize this from my mysterious lo-fi video. If any of you guys guessed that this was going to be for an Alucard build, congratulations to you. For the sword, before I get any paint on it, I'm going to, with the filler sandable primer, I'm going to sand the primer once again to make the blade a little bit smoother, and then once I sand it, I'll hit it with another coat of primer, and then we can move on to paint. Once the primer has dried, I'm going to hit everything with this black paint, and I'll tape over the parts I want to keep black, but the parts I want this stainless steel, I'll paint that with the black gloss underneath. For the shield, next up is this red paint. I've already taped up all the parts I don't want red, so let's get to it. For the blade of the sword, I'm going to hit it with this metallic finish chrome. Let me see if y'all can't see that. And once again, I've taped up the hilt because I don't want that part chromed. Let me move the shield out of the way so I don't accidentally chrome it as well. That'd probably be the smart thing to do. Now that the paint has dried on the shield, now it's time for my favorite part, to where I remove all the tape. Now, there are going to be parts that should be red that aren't because the tape was covering up. To make the seam a little bit smoother, I'm going to go in with some acrylic paint markers and also eventually just some regular modeling red paint. Now that the shield is all painted, I went ahead and glued the lion piece on the front there, and I'm going to hit it with a matte clear coat. For the sword, I'm going to go ahead and just hit it with a gloss clear coat to try to make it nice and shiny. Once the shield has dried, I'm going to go ahead and weather it to make it look all old and beaten as a shield should be. There are some parts where the clear coat has peeled the paint underneath it, but I think it's barely noticeable, and also it adds to the authenticity of it. And so to weather it, I'm just going to use some black modeling paint and then wipe it off with a rag. Now it's starting to look like a thing. So I went ahead and put a clear coat of gloss, clear coat on it. And so next is for the straps. So on the back it has these little holes to where you can screw the straps in. So I got some short nails and some old strap, and I'm gonna hot glue them in and then screw them into place. So next up is to make the actual outfit. So for the outfit, I used this template of these pirate guys, more specifically that vest. So I used that vest and just added sleeves to it. I went ahead and already did a test vest. So this will be the under vest, and I made it a little bit long, but I can just fold it up and sew it a little bit closer so it'll be a little shorter. And I also went ahead and made these pieces. So these are the pieces I also made. So I went ahead and got some gray fabric to make the border part. And I sewed it together, and also on the front with the straps there. There's a sleeve. That's the back piece that I'll sew to the front pieces there. Just like that. And once I do that one seam across the top, then I will sew the sleeves on the sides. It's starting to look like a thing. Now it's just time to sew the sleeves on, and then once I get the sleeves on, then I'll sew up the sides. here it is all put together with the sleeves and everything. So looking good. One issue with the sleeves though. Oh, well, that's an easy fix. There we go. Now that's more like it. I made some other pieces off camera, so I'm going to try all on. So I just have this white shirt and black pants, and these boots I got from a recent Ren fair, which I'm excited about. Now let's try it all on. Made this little wrap thing so it stays on me. Just have it secured with Velcro. Also made this red sash, and at least based off the pictures I thought it was red, but I was eventually informed it's actually more of a brown color, but oh well, I've already made it, so in my version it's red. For the cape, I literally just cut the rest of the fabric I had into kind of a cape shape, and then I sewed the two pieces together kind of like you would sew a pillowcase, and at the very ends I just have Velcro to make it secure. And there we have it. It's all complete. If you like this video, please consider looking at my other videos as well of other stuff I've made. And also thank you for watching all the way through. Please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting and all that other stuff. And share this video with anyone that might be interested as well. Thank you.